Okay, thanks everyone for coming once again. On to the second presentation towards continuous delivery with Fastlane. So, for starters, what is continuous delivery? Continuous delivery is kind of a mentality, a workflow if you want, that according to continuous delivery, you always push new versions of your application to the QA team or to whomever is testing new stuff of your application. And you do always these incremental builds. And as you might all know, if you do this manually, for example, build, go to organizer, find the archive, go to your browser, go to iTunesConnect.com, log in, upload, do this, do that. It's a tedious work. It wastes time. So Fastlane comes to solve this in a very elegant, automated way. Fastlane is hands down the best things since, I don't know, sliced bread, the internet or whatever. It's phenomenally useful, and I think that you should start working with it immediately. So, what is Fastlane? Fastlane is actually a set of tools. I believe it's like 10 or 12 tools written on Ruby. And essentially what it allows you to do is write a file. It's called the fast file, where you describe a set of lanes, and essentially these lanes are just a workflow, just a series of tasks that you want to do as part of your continuous delivery workflow. And like I told you earlier, it significantly makes easier the deployment and release process, whether that be on the App Store or a test flight release or whatever. It's fully open source, fully extendable and configurable. Lots of people are working on it. On GitHub it has like thousands of stars, and it's a very vibrant and active community. So even if you have any issues, I'm sure you will be able to sort it out, just by visiting their page on GitHub. Most importantly, it saves you time. We are all lazy. We don't want to do tedious and repeatable tasks. So if you want to optimize your build process, I'm sure you will find it tremendously useful. So I'm gonna go very quickly through the most important tools that are part of the Fastlane toolkit. First and foremost is Deliver. It allows you to upload your application screenshots, metadata, and of course the app itself on the App Store using a // command and nothing else. There's also Snapshot, which kind of automates and eases up the process of taking even localized screenshots of your iOS app on every device. So it's just a script that runs your application and grabs screenshots for you and then uploads them as part of Deliver. There's PEM or PEM, and it's again a // command to ease up your generation and renewal of your APNS certificates. There is SCI, which has a funny name because provision is like a shitstorm in the iOS ecosystem, and it's called SCI because again you don't have to bother with that stuff on your own. Just let SCI do it for you. It's Produce, another tool that allows you to create new app identifiers and all the associated provision profiles and metadata that you want on iTunes Connect and the developer portal prior to you uploading the binary. So it's another tedious process, especially if you're part of an agency that create apps every once in a while. And there's also Cert, that creates and maintains the iOS provisioning certificate. So if you're working as part of a team and you want the provisioning profiles in order to sign a binary, you don't have the other developer exporting his certificates and doing this and that. You just .cert and fetches them automatically. And there's also Scan, which is another tool, and again, it's a one-liner in order to run your application tests, if you have any, and you should have some. And there's Gene, which actually builds your application. It's like pressing Command R on Xcode or just clicking the build button. A very useful one is also Pilot. that allows you to manage all your internal and external testers on test flight, and it also allows you to upload test flight builds and make them available either to internal or external testers. There are another 2 or 3, and I believe there are some for Android too, so Android developers rejoice. They are each one of them is also available as a standalone tool, so you don't have to use all the other tools or whatever. You just, if you say you need just scan to run your test, you just download scan, use it, boom. And the whole toolkit is based on Spaceship, which is a Ruby framework that exposes both the Apple Developer Program portal and the iTunes Connect as an API. This is very legit. It gets updated very, very, very often, and it just works. I mean, never had any problems with it. And even if you want to do some, weird mambo jumbo custom stuff with the portal, or you should use this. So these are the tools, and now we'll see how we actually get to use Fastlane. Of course, it's a Ruby thing. It's available as a gem. You just, gem install Fastlane. Of course, it's better to use RVM, so avoid, running things as the super user. And then as a quick start, there's this bootstrapping command that says Fastlane init. And what this essentially gets you is a boilerplate fast file, and a boilerplate app file. So you will find, after running this command, you'll find a new directory in your apps project named Fastlane. And inside this directory, there will be 2 files, the fast file and the app file. And now we're going to see what's that about. So the app file. The app file is used to store, essential information that is consumed by all the other Fastlane tools. So that includes the app identifier, your Apple ID, your iTunes Connect team name, if you're part of different teams on iTunes, your Apple Developer Portal ID, your iTunes Connect account, etc., etc. The good thing is that inside there you only provide, username information, but when you get to run the tools, Fastlane will ask you the first time for your password, and then it's going to store it securely in the keychain instead of you having it, as plain text in something that you normally commit on your version control system. So that's pretty cool over there. And what it looks like in a most common scenario, at least in my scenario, is something like that. So I have the app identifier for my application, reverse DNS scheme, my company, my app, whatever. My Apple Dev Portal ID, iTunes Connect ID, team name, team ID, you can get this from Apple Developer Portal. iTunes Connect team name and iTunes Connect team ID, the same, you can get them from iTunes Connect. And now whenever I use any of the Fastlane tools that needs to know anything about my app identifier, my login information, whatever, it goes to the app file, searches for that information, and gets it. And the most important file of the two is a fast file, which is basically where you declare all your lanes or your different, kind of set of tasks or workflows, whatever you call it. They call it lanes. You should stick to that. You can have as many lanes as you want in there. You can name them test flight, beta, crosslytics, tests, whatever. It's fully, custom. And each one of these lanes that you declare in your fast file is actually comprised of a set of actions. Okay, and these actions are basically the tasks that you want to run as part of this specific workflow. Defining your lanes is easy. So this is just, default Ruby stuff, lane, app store, do, and then all the actions go in there, and then there's an end, and then, lane test flight, or lane test, or lane whatever, do, blah, 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 actions, end. And there are some helper blocks, so you get before all block that is executed before running the requested lane. Each of these blocks supports the same actions as lanes, You also get the after all block, and then the error block that gets executed whenever there's an error from any of the tasks that you have declared in your lane. There are hundreds of available actions you can use as part of your lanes. They are quite thoroughly documented on the GitHub page. So I have some examples here. So there's the CocoaHeads action that will just run pod install whenever you declare it in your lane. So in most cases, CocoaHeads goes in a before all block. So whatever lane someone might want to run, it just wants all the CocoaHeads to be installed prior to any building or whatever. This action is quite handy, increment version number. So you have some versioning scheme on your application, increment version number, bump time minor. So if your current version is 1.1.0, it will get you to the next minor version. This is quite handy because you no longer have to keep track of your versioning. Xcode does it for you in Fastlane. Another quite handy action is changelog from git commits. That creates a changelog markdown file out of all your git history. So let's say that you have like 10 commits with features and bug fixes. This one will create a changelog out of them. Ensure git branch. Make sure that when the lane is running, you're on the proper branch. Ensure git status clean. You can use this to ensure that no uncommitted changes go to get deployed. Push to git remote. Useful to update the remote head of your repository, especially in cases where you have tweak the version numbers. Push git tags if you want to create a release out of your deployment or whatever. So all the tools that I introduced in the first part of the presentation are actually available as actions. So you can see here the scan tool as an action. Scan, I'll remind you, it just runs your tests. So you could say, scan, this is my workspace, use this scheme, do not clean the build folder before running the tests. And here's the gin action, which is used to build your application. And again, various configuration options, which workspace to use, which configuration, which scheme, whether you want verbosity in the logging, clean, whether to clean the build directory, where to output the IPA, and where is the output main, and etc. So this is a real life example. This is actually one of my fast files. I use it in a real life project. So in the before all block, which means it will get executed before every lane, I save a Slack hook on the environment because I want Fastlane to post a message on our team Slack when the operation is complete. And I also run CocoaHeads so that I have all the dependencies prior to building anything. This is a tiny little helper lane, which I call test. And what it actually does, it calls this function, which is sort of like a lane, and it basically runs my tests using an iPad Air 2 simulator. Okay? And the way I did it that way is because you cannot call lanes from other lanes. So instead of doing that, you just decouple this, in a separate method, and then just use it anywhere, as you will see now. Now, sorry for the font size here, but there wasn't any other way. So this is the App Store lane. So when I type on my terminal Fastlane App Store, Fastlane makes sure that it builds my application, it runs my tests, whatever, and then it gets uploaded on the App Store in the release mode. So I'm gonna go line by line here. First of all, I have the test app, the function that I declared earlier. It basically runs my tests, and if they fail, the whole lane gets invalidated and it doesn't proceed any further. I ensure that my Git branch is released because I always, push App Store releases from that branch. I ensure that this branch is clean, no uncommitted changes. I increment the version number of my application, the minor, the minor version. So if it was 1.0, it would go to 1.1. Then using Gin, I build my application. You can see here that the configuration is released and the output directory is ./build release. After the application is done building, I'm using the deliver tool, which actually takes this IPA and uploads it on iTunes and submits it for review. I'm not uploading any screenshots here because I prefer to do that manually. You will see that I have skipped screenshots creation and metadata creation. After this action, I commit the version bump on Git. I create a new tag out of it named release dash version, whatever version it was bumped to. I push it to Git remote, and then finally there is a notification on our team Slack saying, blah blah blah, your application is submitted to the App Store for review and release. End of story. And in the same fast file, I have this other lane called testflight, which I use quite often, and I primarily use this to build and upload beta versions for the QA team and my other coworkers to test. And again, I ensure I'm on the develop branch. I ensure that the branch is clean. I increment the build number. I commit the version increment. I build the application with a test flight configuration, and then I use pilot, which is the other thing that you use in order to manage test flight distributions. This skip submission here is set to true because I don't want all the betas to be available to external testers rather than only the internal testers. And then again, there's a Slack notification that gets posted on our channel on Slack. The whole toolkit is severely documented, and it's actually, as you can see, just very easy. You don't have to know Ruby to write any of this. It's just, in most cases, just boilerplate code. This is quite interesting. They have a folder with some fast file and app file examples from other companies, and you will find big names like Mozilla and Wikipedia sharing their configurations there, and some of them are really quite complex, and you might get some very cool ideas out of them. And I guess that'll be all. I wanted to say that Fastlane is so popular that most continuous integration environments like Travis and Circle and Bitrise have it pre-installed, so you can use it on continuous integration delivery systems online. And yeah, that'll be all. Just use it. It's tremendously useful. That'll be all. Questions?
I like it because every single action is like a human level action. So I was reading through your slides and exactly what I'll be doing, but it's manually. So
yep.
I change the develop, I go to the settings, I increment the build number, I click on the configurations, I select release.
Exactly.
I control B, and then
you have to go to the organizer and just.
And it's very, so it's not very technical. It's like almost not natural.
And the thing is that
tasks,
they have so many actions. Like there are actions for sending emails, pushing stuff on Amazon S3. They're very customizable. You can find whatever you want there, and of course you can write your own. And I think maybe I can show you how it works.
So the screenshot, it runs a simulator, it takes random screenshots.
Yeah.
And like
And then
Like
before
screenshot-
proceeding,
yeah.
it launches a browser with the screenshots that's taken, so you can approve them.
So it's not like Russian roulette. I don't know what they have.
No. There's actually a configuration file for it as well, but
Sounds good.
which one should we try right now? Okay, so I'm in my application. I run. Can you?
No.
So I just run Fastlane test flight if I want to push a new beta version, and then the magic starts to happen.
So if ensure develop branch fails, you get a red thing and it just exits.
Yeah, whichever of the actions fails for some reason, just exits. Now you're gonna see lots of words. So now it's building. It got all the pods. Now these are, some deprecation warnings because of the new Swift version. And the interesting is when it gets to the part where it starts uploading that thing on iTunes, because you will see there are some very, very complicated things going on, like opening USB ports with Apple, doing handshakes or whatever. So yeah, it will take a while.
Some drinks over there.
Yeah, the drinks are over there.
Is this one of those things that Apple can shut down tomorrow?
I don't think. Actually, I believe that internally, I believe there are some Apple engineers using that.
Yeah. If they were to shut it down, though, they wouldn't be able to do that on a current version of Xcode.
Well, the thing is that
They might change stuff on iTunes Connect, though.
the core
could,
framework,
yeah.
the SpaceX one, they always monitor these changes because they're not using any sorts of API. They just do web crawling and scraping, right? So even if they do some changes, I mean the team will notice that and just make a new update.
Yeah, I'll be trying it out for test flight. I'm sure.
You should. Because you see, it's just /Fastlane test flight, and then boom, you're out of the office, and then it does the thing, right? And if your actions, if you ensure certain stuff like versioning and stuff like that, you don't have to worry about anything like, iTunes Connect, grinding about versioning numbers and stuff like that. So it's still building. It's a clean build. That's why it takes so long. These are warnings from the VLC guys. I don't have anything to do with that. And I've seen some workflows from some guys that they're basically using the old school thing for doing tests, the ad hoc distribution. You remember that?
Yeah.
The ad hoc one.
I think everybody should do
Yeah.
that sometime.
So whenever there's a pull request to develop runs, there's a continuous integration server that monitors that. It runs the tests. If they succeed, it builds the thing and sends to every QA member the ad hoc IPA for them to download and test. So that's why I started with saying that Fastlane is, like A+ for continuous delivery. And now the building step has finished, the archiving step is finished, and it just signs the application. And now the true magic will begin.
Is it gonna open the organizer or do it
No.
under the? No. It's really good. Okay, so even if you want to distribute builds, you don't have to use TestFlight. You can use your own. Like if you want your users to get your builds right away, and you don't want to rely on the TestFlight delay, you can do the ad hoc thing. And there's already pre-made examples for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are also actions for using Fabric beta thing.
Yeah,
And now look what it does, right? All these are transactions with the iTunes Connect portal. So it's very complicated stuff. You get, CPU tokens, you get file sizes, checksums, whatever, and then you'll see that in a while the upload is going to start. Look here, connected to UDP, SGI. I mean, they've done a tremendous job with a spaceship framework. I mean, should have taken them months to reverse engineer the whole thing. And now the upload starts. The internet is sluggish here, as expected.
Yeah, it's gonna take a while.
And then after this is going to finish, I'm just interrupted right here. Our boss will get a notification on the Slack channel, and you will know when to open, update the newest version. Just so that be all. And on the GitHub they have these, like, where is it? Fastlane examples, and you can see some mock configuration files from the Fabric app, RT, Wikipedia, Firefox by Mozilla, Product Hunt. I mean, some big names are already using this, and I guess Firefox has a very complicated thing going on. Yeah, it's quite complicated.